hour later.
What is that sound? I'm gonna go outside, man. What is going on upstairs? What is going on here? Yo, are you okay, man?
I just can't make it further than these bars, man.
Are you tired of just being stuck with a loop? Do you have trouble making your ideas into full tracks or getting anywhere further than a decent loop? Or do you have trouble coming up with ideas or melodies in general? Well, after making music myself for like 12 years, I think I can help you out with making your dreams come to a fuller vision, so you can actually feel like you've finished what you've started. I'm going to keep it really simple, however. I'm not trying to tell you to use a certain DAW or to steer you to some kind of other kind of lessons to be able to start a certain step in the process. No. I want to give you simple guidelines that I think anybody can follow and achieve some very interesting results, and by sticking to what you feel is good and likable for you. We'll go through 4 days of making a track, or 4 steps that you can do by literally being lazy and getting some good results in the end. So first day is this. We make the idea. First, we need to probably decide what genre we're gonna make. Decided? Okay, great. So for most genres, you can start with the kick drum pattern first. Except in trap music, I find it really nice to start with the ticky closed hi-hat pattern first. Then add some simple bass line, or don't, if you're making bass-oriented music. Yeah, don't. Then add the clap. Then maybe a snare or a percussion pattern, then another percussion pattern, then a hi-hat pattern. I know you people have their own way of making drum pattern, but I swear this order is pretty hard to go wrong with. Okay, now that we got something to jam on top of, all we're going to do now is figure out what is going to be our main instrument. Pick your favorite, and just jam out like 4 times on top of your drums for like 2 minutes each time. Okay, got that done? Great. Now go take a break. Go eat or take a walk or whatever it is you do for fun or relaxation. Okay, got your break? Great. Now sit down and listen through each of your jams, and whenever you hear 1 bar or 2 bars, 4 or 8 bars that sound really good, chop it and color it a different color if possible from the main jam or the MIDI clip color. Those parts that you favor, I like to call them gems. The gems in the jams. After you have gone through each of your jams and got your gems, go take another break, or if you want, wait until the next day, honestly. Okay, now we are on day 2. Well, possibly, it's up to you. But remember, we're gonna be lazy, so yeah, it's day 2. So now preferably after you got breakfast and all, sit down and listen through each of your gems and do an elimination process of which ones sound meh, and leave behind hopefully like 2 to 5 real good gems, maybe even just 1. Okay, guess what now? We go take another break. Being lazy is nice. Alright, now we come back and listen to those good gems and select the very nicest sounding one. Amazing. Now we should have a real nice loop. Okay, now you're probably saying like, oh my god, what the heck? I've just spent like 2 days getting a loop. What the fuck? But no. See, we now have a loop that has kind of stood the test of time a little. Or at least we've chosen the probably actual best pattern that we played from, which should probably give you vibes, especially if you selected a real vibey favorite instrument or sound to jam with. And because of that, we have a loop that should actually inspire us to get to the finish line of making a full track. Okay, guess what we are going to do now? That's right, go take a break. Now on day 2 evening, or maybe even on day 3, I don't know how lazy you are, we're gonna continue our track. So now we got our loop. Awesome. This is where we now take this all to the next level. We're going to now build the track. Woot woot. Now, depending on the music you're making, or how full or better, yet how not full it sounds, maybe you'll want to add some chords to accompany the main pattern and drums. Maybe then, or instead, some pads. Maybe then an arpeggio or some sort if you really feel like it. Take your loop and all its layers, and just on a whim, choose where the first drop or where the chorus is going to hit. Just flow and don't overthink it. Just put it somewhere, okay? Now take either the melody or the bass line or chords and copy that layer to the beginning of your track. I don't know, unless you want your track to start with drums and then flow into your melodies or chords or pads or whatever. This is where we're actually done the whole track basically. Now it's just time to arrange it all so the parts kind of introduce into each other nicely. Thing is, when most people make a loop, they don't have a process to make a full song skeleton loop. They actually usually just make one or maybe two patterns on top of a kick drum or a simple drum set. But since we have made all the pieces before arranging it, it makes it actually pretty easy and kind of logical where the pieces need to come in to make a full track flow properly. Alright, now that we have generally laid out the different layers and how they flow into each other, it's time for some cheats, I mean effects. Add a long sweep of some sort into the drop or chorus, maybe two. Add a medium one or two or three, maybe even a short sweep. Now do that sweep layering of how much you want for all the sections of your track that feel like meh in the transitions. Okay, great. Now go take a break. I don't know what day it is now, honestly. You can loaf like all you want in between these steps. Then next time you sit down, add a build-up with some snares or whatever percussion you want to lead into the drop or chorus. Okay, great. Then add some impact effects to where things still don't sound proper in the transitions. Now at this point in your track making process, you may have listened to your drop or chorus a bunch of times and are feeling like it needs some pockets of it to be filled up more, or it needs like some a little bit more spice, you know? So add some, maybe some bass hits or synth one shots or whatever top frequency, high, mid that needs to hit to make the drop or chorus to sound actually like more full now, or fully full. Okay, now go for maybe another break, but I don't know. Now we come back and listen if the track needs more percussion layers, or maybe you can think of another pad or chord or whatever to add to the layering of the whole track. I don't know what you want in your music, but you should have some sense to what may be missing. As we take these breaks, it should give you that proper breathing space for your ears and mind to have a clear and new perspective to what your music needs more or doesn't need. You may want to even take away certain things. Now this part is tricky, because if you're an experienced producer, you probably were already adding plugins like filters and flangers and choruses and whatever, fancy plugins that alter the sound either by filtering or manipulating the sound in some way to weave your layers into sections more to your liking, or just spicing it up in general. But maybe you're just starting to make music and you don't really have favorite sound manipulating plugins that you actually reach for. So you can start doing that now, and it should be quite easy and fun, and again it should make more sense to you as to where you want to do such things like filter them sound or delay them, reverb them, because it's just more interest that you want to add to your music into how everything's playing out throughout the track, playing and evolving. Remember, for all this sound manipulation stuff, automation is your biggest friend, and you used to doing it. Automating your knobs makes your music really flow and come to life and tells a story in a much more smoother way. Automation is a really great tool to sew your music together as a whole. This is also where you get a chance to really infuse your unique style into your music. I know in this process we take a lot of breaks, but you can just keep taking breaks obviously, or not. Take as minimal breaks as you want, but keep coming back to your music and having those fresh ears and fresh mind, and just being able to look at what needs to be added or taken away and complete your music. Sometimes what'll happen is you'll work on a track or you'll jam out on a method, you'll make a pattern, make a loop, but it won't really hit you. You won't get a vibe, you won't really connect with it. And I think it's okay. You should just try again the next day or the next day after that. Maybe it'll actually work out and give you a feeling and a vibe. Just keep polishing your music until it sounds complete to you, sounds great. So as I said already, this process does take more time, but it's more in like pockets of time. So it is kind of good if you have like a small amount of time to like work on something a day, so you can just kind of get something and like that'll kind of like work eventually. But I think that this does work more better for like 4-on-4 music, because myself personally, I've never actually made like dubstep or drum and bass or any other kind of genres that are not really 4-on-4. So I think the process there works kind of differently, and you probably wouldn't really benefit from like jamming out on top of stuff, but I really don't know. But I think that would be the case. So yeah, and what I really mean by getting something eventually that will work is basically, obviously, you'll get a track that actually does vibe with you. And like I've heard many producers say that it's like you just got to put in the work and kind of trust the process, and then not everything that you're going to make is going to be amazing. You might not make something good for a decent while, but you kind of actually have to, in a metaphor, be kind of like holding that cup as like you doing the work, holding the cup. And then basically when water actually starts pouring from the faucet, that's like when you're actually catching those good vibe songs, like you're catching that water that's actually finally coming out of the faucet. You just have to put the work in to keep staying, being there with the cup, you know? And you could obviously get this water finally coming to the cup by just making music, by programming it in. But as I said before, this is kind of more of a natural way where you'll actually get those small millisecond timings of like all the notes, instead of just being like completely on the line, quantized. Even though you could move the notes yourself, you'll still never really get that human feel. But obviously, if you just make programming in the notes like that, you could just finish a track like in one sitting. But to get that kind of more natural element and get the best out of the jam, you do have to then sift through it and find the best parts and stuff. You don't have to take as many breaks as I'm telling you you really have to, but I think it just kind of gives you the more clearer picture of what's really nicest, because your ears get a rest and your mind gets a rest. And maybe with experience you really don't need that, but I don't know. You be the judge of that. And depending on what genre you're actually making, it might actually not really be a benefit for you to use this jamming method, but maybe you kind of want to anyway, to kind of make something different. Because I really do know that in like techno, it is kind of more beneficial or more normal, or whatever you would want to call it, that things are actually sound kind of robotic. That's kind of what I at least heard, that techno really like embraces that kind of aspect about it, that it wants to be sounding robotic, and then all the things that you do around all this robotic stuff is what gives it that interesting feel that a human made it. But I don't know, you try it all out for yourself and see what you like. I personally myself have also started to actually make more music by just sitting down and programming it in and stuff like that, because this is a process that does take more time. But as I said before, you do kind of get more things to choose from in the end of what you would really like to use as your foundational loop. You could, of course, just stay and make adjustments in different patterns by programming them in, but it just feels more kind of like you're always switching things out, or you're only working on one pattern, if you kind of know what I mean. But here, yeah, you get to just kind of choose from a more wider array of choices. So I guess you can use both methods, obviously, or just stick to one that really works better for you and your type of music. So yeah, go out there and make some great tunes. So this is my method, and it works pretty well for me. I think it's a pretty nice method. Lets you go kind of with the flow with it, be easy with it, has your ears rested and stuff like that. And yeah, I hope you guys make some music with it. You can obviously alter it, make it your own. And if you make some music, post it down in the comments. I'd like to hear your music. And yeah, if you want me to make anything or do any kind of more videos about whatever kind of topics, talk about anything, review something, I love to do that kind of stuff. So just give me some kind of suggestions in the comments below, and yeah, like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. Yeah, hope to see you in another video. See ya till next time.